I'm looking out there right now at the rain, and it's really a wonderful thing to see. And it's a terrible thing to know how much flooding and some people and some death will happen on the way. Um, I was going to talk about perception. I think perception is a subject we haven't really talked about too much. But how many of you out there, this is a rhetorical question in many ways, but how many of you see with your eyes or do you see with your mind? It doesn't have to be either or. Um, there is a thing of looking for things in the environment, being very specific and looking. We have a lot of habits around perception and seeing, understanding what we see. It's very much these habits that have developed not only in our lifetime in the way we think, but also from our ancestors, from the many millions of years that we've evolved to see a certain way and think a certain way. These are habits, some of our own habits, some of the habits from nature itself. And I think I'm beginning to understand how much we control our perceptions and what we see. I find that being able to see or to think no thoughts, is that possible? To think no thoughts. I think it's the absence of thoughts, the absence of thinking, the absence of habit of what we see and how we perceive it, how we work it over in our mind. This is something to really pay attention to. Being an artist, you develop certain habits of drawing or creating things, and you're looking for those things, those patterns. And yet, when we stop that sort of search and when we stop trying to make sense of everything, that's when things open up. And that's what we do. We sit on the cushion. We've developing habits to work for us, right? We sit down on the cushion a certain time, a certain way for a certain amount of time, to breathe a certain way, to stand and do kinhin in a certain way, to narrow ourselves, our thinking, our activities, our brain activity. I often think about when we sit in our either cross-legged or Japanese style or however we can manage to sit, is that we're kind of folding ourselves up like origami pieces. And these pieces are to become more cognizant of the way we think. And the way to watch how we watch, and gradually through this, all the habits we develop, and it often doesn't happen right away. Sometimes it's like we're a stone in a stream and we just keep wearing away, the erosion of wearing away of what we used to be, and to being able to remove, take off the extra layers that we add to everything. And by doing that consistently, habitually, it does seem to work very much. And those are habits that really work for us, but sometimes we become too attached, even to those thoughts, even to the shrinking of our thoughts. And those thoughts can gain a lot of attraction. Let's say trying to define emptiness, trying to vastness, the material world, abstract concepts, or just as seductive as more mundane affairs. But just trying, not even trying, allowing. I think it's more of an allowing for our thoughts to recede. In other words, the space between them to grow. And allowing that is really sometimes a forever job. It never seems to just do that. Always seems to be kind of by accident when it happens. And when you can recognize, when you can really get intimate with your thinking style, your habits and thinking, the redundancy of our thinking. In fact, sometimes I feel, in fact, we do this all the time. Oh, Monday's always bad. There's a good thought of a random kind of condition we can attach to that. Mondays are always terrible. Can't wait till Friday comes. I'll be off then. It's our discriminating mind, our habitual mind that's always tossing things from good to bad. Oh, that's good, great, bad. We make quick decisions. We go to the supermarket. We read labels. We do a lot of functioning things, like just things we need to do. We need to vote. You need to get your mail. You need to get your car registered. You need to sign documents. That is another world. Where do we find the time in this busy, busy, busy world to be able to sit and allow that to happen? Well, here's the conundrum. You have to develop good habits to do this. You have to be very consistent. You have to be attached to sitting. You have to have persistence. You have to judge for yourself in your habitual way of, well, is this good for me? Is this bad for me to sit? Can I do it now? Should I do it now? Or have I arranged my life, which I haven't, and I really envy the people who have been able to arrange their lives in a very habitual pattern where they can sit consistently without interruption and without fail. I don't know what that exactly means. And it just might be my nature of who I am and my style. We could say style, personality, or the demands made on us in the other world, in the real world. And I would like to know from you all, because I'm curious, how do you see, how do you perceive? I know we have a lot of different layers and times and ways we perceive. Sometimes we're on the search, sometimes we can relax, sometimes we can unattach, and sometimes we can just be. So I'd like to hear what you have to say about this particular thing. Thank you.
Does anybody
Oh, there's Sandy. Yeah.
I think we really perceive with all of our senses, not just, hearing things or seeing things, but all of them, our touch, our smell, the sense of smell, all of them. If you say, for instance, you see yourself outside in a garden, um, you might touch a flower, you might smell the flower, you might look at the flowers and decide if it's how beautiful a thing is. But I think our whole being is involved in perceiving.
I think you're right.
But the thing is, like you're saying, when you're down on the cushion and you're trying to calm your thoughts so they're slow enough that you can just watch them go by and not attach to them. It's they come in. In other words, you all of a sudden you become aware. You might become aware of the light. You might become aware of a sound that takes you away from your meditation. Someone might come up and touch you, or a cat walks by and rubs your leg. So I think perception you know, it can be many different things. And I know exactly what you mean about how your thoughts are when you're trying to sit and trying to quiet your mind. Uh, it's all of a sudden, it's like all these random thoughts start coming up, and they don't necessarily mean anything at all. It's just, I don't know what they're there for, but they're there. And I think it's
I
just the
have, I
way.
have, I know what to add to this right now. I know what because you pick up a flower, you look at the flower, and you decide if it's beautiful. We actually actively got involved with this process of deciding on and being discriminating when even most awful, heinous things, I can't even say it, things happen in front of your face, and we put judgment on it. And not that that's always a bad thing, but we decide if it's beautiful or ugly. And that is a concept that actually is a
Right.
mental framework.
Right. It's a mental framework, and it really doesn't have any basis in reality. It's just something we've learned to do. We've learned to judge things to make them more acceptable or less acceptable. So if we just looked at the flower with no perceived notions and didn't judge the flower would just be there, and it would be, it's just like if I said, oh, you're very attractive, you know, he's very ugly, she's good looking. Everybody is beautiful in their own way. I mean, it really means nothing, these constant little things we have going on in our mind. But it's something we picked up, you know, and we perceive things, and we continue to do that over time, and we don't always recognize, to me, that it's not looking at anything in the real world. You're not giving yourself the ability to see, to really see someone or to see something. um, if you go out and look at the flowers or look at the trees, you become one with them. It opens up, you're able to see your oneness with them, the same as when you really look at another person. um, you can become one with them, and it's just a different way of looking at life. But it's something I think that changes over time. As you sit, you look less and less and make judgments less and less, and are more able to look at the world just the way it is, neither good nor bad, ugly or attractive. You know, this, there really is no reason to define it like that. The only reason to use definitions like that are to protect ourselves. You know, if we're in a dangerous
I agree on
situation.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like, let's say, should I have let's see, this bowl of moldy old soup, or should I get something new out of the refrigerator and eat that? Of
Right.
course, a lot of our habits are developed out of survival
Right.
conditions.
But
And
we've
so the
we've
way we
gone
look
beyond
at,
survival with using them. So
yes, here we
yeah, we
are.
now use them in a way that's not necessarily productive for our lives. So
Well, if we have, if we feel like there's something beyond that, let's see that veil we put up between us and the other thing. If there is, you feel like there is a veil there, that yes, you haven't quite made it yet. And can I move over here to Matt? He looks like he's
oh yeah.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. It's been a little while. Yeah, a couple of things. One is I love the discussion between Sandy and Mark, because I think what it gets to is what happens to us, A, is we're hardwired to pay attention to things that stand out in the environment, like a flower, like something like blood, like all sorts of miscellaneous things. And I believe that they are survival, that they have to do with survival. We need to pay attention to distinctive items in the environment. And even if that instinct has nothing to do with Homo sapiens, it may have to do with insects, but we've evolved from way back when those adaptations may have been functional and no longer are. And then there's, of course, the learned the learned things that grab our attention. You know, something beautiful like a flower, well, that flower may have attributes that would benefit us, or may actually be dangerous or neutral. But they require that we pay attention to them through a survival instinct. So there's instinct, and then there's learned behavior. The other thing that I wanted to comment on was that Mark was talking about, oh God, good habits. In terms of good habits, with regards to practice, I think this gets back to way-seeking mind. And when I gave a talk, I discussed Mel Weitzman's discussion of it. And with way-seeking mind, it's the desire to do our practice, to get to the bottom of things, and that becomes the desire that is the greatest desire of our life. When that desire includes everything, that inclusion focuses our practice. And so everything, in a sense, if the way-seeking mind is strong enough, everything in a sense will be included as practice. And so I think we just have to get in touch with the way-seeking mind. And that's something that I need to do more of. And that's all I have to say. So.
Thank you. Yes, it's like we live in conundrums and paradoxes because we have to try but not try. We have to save all beings. We have to learn all dharmas. We have to do all these things that really are kind of impossible. But anyway, let's go to Mike, because I know sometimes your hand's up and sometimes it's not, Mike.
I keep changing my mind. But one of the things I was thinking of during your talk, I really enjoyed it, especially for, spur of the moment, is that I feel that our perceptions are trained into us, meaning we learn them from how other people perceive the similar situation, that their survival systems, as Sandy and both Matt were talking about it. And the only thing I could add is that perceptions are a necessary function of life. That's how we save ourselves from danger, how we feed ourselves, how we recognize beauty in art. But deep down inside, perceptions are empty because they are influenced by conglomerations of senses and experiences and our life history and stuff. And so we have to be careful not to become attached to them. because of the fact that they're familiar or other people feel the same way or something like that. And so that it's kind of one of those things where they're very useful and they make life intriguing and stuff. But deep down inside, we have to realize that they are something we have created through our experiences in life. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're valid, but they're useful. They're a necessary tool, but we have to be careful of the danger of using that tool. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. There's a lot of judgments just within that whole thing and discriminations, but we're trying to figure out things abstractly here. I thought this was really interesting. I remember that Dawkins, I think it's, he's quite a philosopher and a brilliant thinker. And he was describing, some other physicists are coming up with this whole concept of, instead of physical laws of the universe, they're more like habits. They're more like, there's a habit of gravity, right? This universe seems to have habits. Maybe this is just our, imprinting our ideas on the universe, which we do all the time. But it creates a situation where we're not limiting the possibility of things we don't know. So we have a science, we're a very science-based society. Most of the time, at least they're thinkers, and the scientists are very much so, but everything is thought through, but it also creates barriers that are constructs, even in the universe. And somewhere in between our thinking and what's happening, there's a huge chasm, because when we stop thinking, we take away those props, that structure, that, let's say it's almost like a kind of like one of those plastic shower curtains where you can kind of see everything pretty good, but as soon as some moisture gets on there, it's changing everything up. Removing that. And maybe we should be out there sitting in the rain meditating today, rather than trying or just looking at it, and sitting out there just to experience and to really learn to stop thinking about it. Maybe there's some Zendos that do that. I don't know. But it is very interesting, because the habits of nature are changing now, if we look at it that way, since the habits of man have been rather nasty and problematic. And so I guess this change goes out to everywhere. Some things are, change is everywhere. So anybody have any other thing to add on to that? But someone has their hand up, or?
Mitch has his hand up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it is. I couldn't see that, Mitch. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm used to it.
Well, it's that your background is very close to the hand. That's why you can't see it.
Oh, okay. Two quick things. Just to follow up, you almost said exactly what my comment was going to be. If you go back to the Heart Sutra, which I try to do often, bodhisattvas take refuge in perfect wisdom and live without hindrances of the mind, right? Without hindrances, they see through delusion and find their nirvana, right? I think that's what we're talking about, because those hindrances are our judgments and our discriminations, our delusions, they just get in the way. And the other comment that I was going to make is, when through my sitting in my practice, and I started to realize how much I discriminated and how much I judged, and I realized how much energy it takes up. It takes a lot of energy. It saps you to a certain extent. And without those wheels going around all the time in your mind, I found my life to be much more vibrant and much, I enjoyed it more because I had
I
more.
think you're right. Yeah, because I've noticed with people who are very judgmental, they're very uptight. They're very wound up and they expect a lot of specific results. Being in the teaching profession, I'm dangerously the opposite of that. So much so, I think I've injured my career a few times out there. But that was very good, Mitch. I understand what you're saying. That was, is there anything else you want to add
Well,
to that?
you know what I would like to, and I don't know if this is an appropriate time. Maybe this is for another session.
No, we're here
Another
right
time.
now.
I have friends that I've had for 40 years, since high school, even for more than 40 years. And when you get with these people now, sometimes it's hard for me to be with them because they are doing all this discrimination. They are making all these judgments. They all have these preconceived notions of things. And sometimes it's hard because you just want to tell them, just relax, man. Chill. It doesn't make any difference if that guy over there is doing this, and it doesn't make any difference that that she's buying that. It's just give it up.
I don't
know what other people's experiences are as their practices ripened and matured and tried to deal with people outside of the practice.
Well, I think there's we kind of, I think our practice is to be tolerant of their own defensiveness because they need to feel secure. So they create a land of certainty. And that can be done very quickly with making fast decisions, adding things up quickly, logically, and then or emotionally. And then you can sit in judgment of the world safely away from the vulnerability that we have when we remove the filters.
But
when we go out there.
Isn't that greed, hate, and delusion? Isn't this your greed, your attachment, trying to validate our self, quote unquote self? So, but how do you handle it? How do you handle it?
I go sit in the rain. Go sit in the rain and do nothing, and let everyone try to talk you out of getting out of the rain. So with that, we should probably move on. And
Mark, I want to add one real quick statement.
one more thing. Okay, yeah.
My father one time came home and found me laying out in the backyard in the rain on a summer day, and it was pouring rain on me. He's looking at me going, "What are you doing?" I said, "It's too hot in the house. It's much nicer out here." He looked at me real strangely, walked back in the house, came back out in his swim trunks and sat down next to me and goes, "You're right. It's much better out here." So sitting in the rain is good.
Well, he was kind of a Zen master in some ways.
You can't always choose your teachers.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Sandy.
What Mitch asked about, how do you deal with it? I think you deal with it just by not judging them and just accepting that they are who they are, and you can feel compassion for them because they're suffering with their behavior. So that's about the only, I don't see that you can do much other than if you have a time or a place that you could kind of point out to them what they're doing on an easy, simple way that you won't insult somebody. But I think about the best thing you can do is just have compassion for them and accept them for what they are, because that's the way we are. But I was going to say also about I look at all of you, and we've been doing this. Most of us have been doing this for a long time, and I'm I know that just sitting, whether we were successful in calming the thoughts or not, we've all changed, and we've all established new ways to look at the world, and new ways to interact with it. But we don't always see what's happened to ourselves. It takes a long while till you kind of get a feeling, or someone mentions something and you realize, oh, gee, maybe my perceptions have changed. My outlook in life has changed and it's most likely from your sitting. So,
That's really a good observation, because that's how I've been feeling lately, is that, but I didn't recognize it. Like I said, you're like a stone in the river, and it wears you away slowly every day, so you don't really miss it. But before you know it, you've been turned into a very streamlined design, and you don't get caught on those with your rough edges in the world as
right,
much.
right.
So I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm glad you guys all participated, because that really helps me understand as well. I think so much in the world is that we develop our thoughts, and then we, as a teacher, and then you put your thoughts out there, and they should be academically perfect. And we're always trying to create a solid something. When you look at the rain, you see how it flows and how it goes, how it's going to do its job one way or another, and without any way to control it. It's just nature.